Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation for week 2. My name is Octavio Ramirez Lopez. This was class MPA 545 Conflict Resolution and Labor Negotiation. This is for Professor James Curtis at California Baptist University. So to begin with, I'm going to start with a little overview of my presentation. I'll be identifying 4 concepts and authors within the book that are related to those concepts. These concepts are to be identified from chapters 1, 2, and 3. And then once I identify that author, I'm going to locate an article as provided in the reference on the back of the book on page 225 and on. And then once I identify their article or work, I'll be providing insight on information that I located in regards to these authors. Okay, so the first concept is conflict. It's found in chapter 1, page 1 of the textbook, and it just basically starts by identifying what conflict is. So Weeks provides a much better explanation than conflict being a negative thing or disagreement of ideas. So he expands by saying that conflict is basically an inescapable part of our daily lives, an inevitable result of our highly complex, competitive, and often litigious society. And basically conflict may happen may occur in organizations, families, and modern city, or where there's interaction between people or different parties who are interested for either the same ideas, interests, or resources. So again, the conflict also arises because there's many overlapping dynamics and processes, and conflict is very complex. So Weeks expands in his book called the 8 Essential Steps to Conflict Resolution. He expands the identification of what conflict is. So he did a survey, a few people from different disciplines. Can't remember exact books, but I mean exact amount of people. I did access part of the book. I was not able to read the whole thing or most of it because I found it on Amazon in the look inside type of review. So I was able to read about how Weeks states that conflict's not necessarily a bad thing. He expands by saying that even though people identify with negative things such as fight, war, anger, impasse, pain, destruction, wrongdoing, who has control, or hatred, he moves beyond that negative phase of conflict into a positive phase of conflict. That basically conflict is pretty much a wake-up call for us to come out with positive solutions to this conflict, to this disagreement, to this fight for control. And instead of making negotiations distributive, that conflict could be a wake-up call for different parties to be able to look at the interests of people disputing and trying to access either control or resources. So to look at all those interests and making the negotiation more of integrative type of negotiation rather than distributive type of negotiation, which sees the negotiation or more of a bargaining, since involved parties are more looking towards getting more from the fixed pie while they affect the other. So my insight on this is just as a complex society and also overpopulation, lack of resources, that we need to look at the interests and maybe what one resource may mean more important to us, it may be less important for the other person. So maybe we can come with trade-offs or negotiations where, okay, you get this that you really want, and I get this that you don't really want or need that I want. So he expanded, but my insight on this is just that we should be able to just look at other people's interests and our interests so that we can come up with good solutions and not make conflict a negative thing, but just see it as a wake-up call to come up with innovative ideas or negotiations to succeed in society and also make a better use of resources, since conflict can also be expensive if we waste time or avoidance or causes loss of funds. When there's disagreement and high paid officials are wasting time fighting for the same resources and they do not come to a negotiation or solution. Okay, so the next concept is negotiation process. It is introduced in the book, chapter 3, page 47, and it talks about how an effective negotiation depends on the ability of the parties in the early discussion to share a lot of the information about the needs, issues, and interests of both parties so that they can come up to a solution. so that it could be both mostly a win-win situation, and neither one of the parties is either deceived or exploited. So Fisher and Erie further expand in the book, stating that yes, so a negotiator can not be either hard or soft. It has to be both, a combination of both hard and a soft negotiator. So they suggest they make 4 suggestions for a negotiator to be effective and coming with the opponent into a yes, into an agreement. So first, they suggest that both disputants separate the people from their problem and just focus on what they're trying to accomplish and not the emotions. Yes, you still have to treat that person as as a human being, but do not focus on their negative reactions. Let those negative reactions affect the negotiation. Also, they suggest that the negotiators must focus on the interests, it's not the position. So trying to look at what you're trying to accomplish and not uh, be on the force or fixed position where say I'm not going to agree, I'm not going to flex my decision, or we already made a decision. The third suggestion that they make is just to create value. So they refer to as invent options for mutual gain. So create value, share information so that both sides can develop trust, so they have much information on the table as possible to create new possibilities and discover trade-offs for mutual gain for both parties. The fourth suggestion they make is to insist on using objective criteria, so that at the end, whatever solutions are not argued, but they could be a concrete solution that is not going to be argued. So my insight is that I really find this 4 suggestions very helpful, since a lot of us sometimes try to negotiate and we are let ourselves be run by emotions, by what that person did to us before, without really looking into the underlying interest of those people and what they did it. Okay, so the third concept is attribution theory, introduced in chapter 1, page 4 of our textbook, and basically refers on how we as human beings, we make sense of our world by assigning qualities and causes to people or situations based on what is more relevant to us, based on what we see, and not really on what is actually happening. So Fritz Heider further discusses this concept in his book called Psychology of Interpersonal Relations. And he's basically states that we try to make sense of our world by looking at what is evident to us. So that brings us to having a perception, or that may be real to us, but may not be real to either the personal situation that which we are applying or attributing these characteristics to. So Fritz Heider further explains that as humans look at behaviors of others to attribute those characteristics or identify someone. So we may also look at how they use their language, and on so basically on their behaviors and language use, we may feel that this person is not really, for example, someone who is really refusing to negotiate, or it uses strong language to say to kind of stay firm in their position. We may think that they're just not cooperative, but we're not looking at some of the errors that we make as human beings. We make these attribution errors where we don't look at we only look at the dispositional uh, attributions, the internal, the ones related to the person based on their behavior, but we do not look at the environment. So we need to look at the situational, the external attributions, where this person's acting a certain way because based on the environment that he has no control over. So my insight on this is that yes, a lot of times we need to control our emotions and kind of just look at, like, have a wider picture of what things may be going on, and ask ourselves, why is this person acting this way? How can it change? What is making this person behave a certain way? And where can we talk, or where can we take the situation further to, so that we can have better negotiation, and who needs to be involved? Or it's just all those things that come around, so that we can understand the underlying interests that are affecting this behavior, not necessarily attribute this behaviors or language to make a negotiation stall or not move forward. Okay, so the last concept is field theory. It's you can find in chapter 1, page 5 of our textbook, and basically refers to as how people uh, actions are viewed as a product of contextual forces. So a person is going to act accordingly to that field. So Kurt Lewin, he wrote his book, Field Theory of Social Science. I was not able to access the book. However, I was able to access a one-page review at the American Journal of Sociology website. I was able to access a one-page book review where I was able to read more about Kurt's point of field theory, where he says it's basically a person's state of mind. Where does that person find himself? Does that person find himself feeling threatened by the opponent or feel comfortable with the opponent? So basically, there are different forces that make a person behave a certain way. So my insight on this is that basically, whether it be a parent, whether it be a public administrator, negotiator, or a politician, we need to see that state of mind of that person. If we want to come to a negotiation, there's integrative, so we need to look at that person's state of mind, so that we can't meet at that person's level and come up with a solution together, so that we uh, can be collaborative and have an integrative negotiation. In conclusion, I discussed four concepts found in our collaborative approaches to resolving conflict textbook, and these concepts affect how a negotiation can go. The first concept is conflict, and how, according to Weeks, is not necessarily a negative thing, even though we tend to apply negative phases of conflict. The second concept is negotiation process, and I discussed four suggestions that Fisher and Erie provided in order to help us become successful negotiators without really giving in. And third concept is attribution theory and how we try to make sense of our world or people's behaviors. And finally, the fourth concept is field theory and how a person's state of mind affects their behavior and negotiations. So this concludes my presentation. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys' presentation, and hopefully everyone's having a great weekend. Bye.